Cowboys reality check. And if you have been watching this space over the last few weeks, you already know that what is about to happen in Pittsburgh on Thursday night could permanently alter the course of this franchise for the next half-decade. Jerry Jones is sitting on 2 first-round picks, a defense that gave up more points than any unit in modern Cowboys history, and a receiver room that the rest of the league is circling like a shark. The phones are ringing. The scouts are moving. The names are getting louder. And every decision made between now and the end of draft weekend defines what kind of team this becomes going into 2026 and beyond. This is Cowboys Reality Check. Let's get into it. The conversation that has taken up more oxygen than any other heading into this draft involves George Pickens, the franchise tag, and a trade proposal that would fundamentally reshape Dallas's approach to the first round. The scenario that has been floating through the league goes like this. The Cowboys trade Pickens and the 12th overall pick to the Kansas City Chiefs in exchange for the 9th pick and the 40th pick overall. Dallas moves up 3 spots in the first round, retains the 20th pick acquired from the Green Bay Packers, and adds a second-round selection in what would be a significant accumulation of capital for a team that currently lacks a pick between the first and third rounds. Pickens is coming off the best season of his career, having delivered 93 catches, 1,429 yards, and 9 touchdowns in 2025, earning both a Pro Bowl and All-Pro selection in his first year with the Cowboys after arriving via trade for Pittsburgh. The franchise tag placed on him carries a fully guaranteed salary of $27.3 million for the 2026 season, and while the Cowboys have publicly expressed a desire to keep Pickens long-term, no long-term extension has materialized. A tag-and-trade scenario has been discussed since before the tag was applied, with multiple league insiders noting that such a move would be consistent with the Cowboys' recent willingness to trade star players for significant draft compensation. The reference point everyone cites is the Micah Parsons deal with Green Bay, which netted Dallas the 20th pick now in their possession. The framing behind this specific proposal centers on one player, Jordan Tyson, the Arizona State wide receiver whom multiple credible voices have connected to Dallas. The logic is that moving up to 9 gives the Cowboys a cleaner shot at securing Tyson before another team does. But there are 2 structural problems with this proposal that deserve honest scrutiny. The first is Kansas City's financial situation. Stephen Jones confirmed on Dallas radio that the Cowboys have not received any calls expressing interest in trading for Pickens as of the week leading into the draft. Without an active and interested trade partner, this remains theoretical. Beyond that, Kansas City is currently operating near the bottom of the league in available cap space. Adding Pickens' $27.3 million franchise tag salary on top of their existing cap commitments would require the Chiefs to engage in significant restructuring work before the deal could even be executed. That is a real obstacle, not a minor procedural one. The second problem with this trade is what Dallas surrenders on defense. The proposal effectively converts a premium defensive draft slot into an offensive one, and it does so on a roster that gave up an NFL-worst 511 points last season in a defense that was consistently torched through the air. Moving up to 9 for a wide receiver, even one of Tyson's caliber, means potentially passing on pass rushers like Reuben Bain Jr. at 12, one of the most disruptive interior threats in this class, or cornerback Mansour Delane, who has the traits to be an immediate NFL starter. Trading a defensive slot for an offensive one when this defense finished dead last in scoring allowed is an extremely difficult position to defend publicly or internally. The counterargument exists, and it is worth engaging with seriously. Jordan Tyson on a rookie contract, paired with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott in Brian Schottenheimer's system, creates an offense with genuine championship-caliber upside. Replacing Pickens' $27.3 million franchise tag with a first-round rookie deal, while retaining the 20th pick to address defense, has theoretical merit. But the counterargument only works if you believe the Cowboys can adequately address their defensive needs with a single first-round pick, which is an optimistic assumption given the depth of the problem. The honest assessment is this. The Pickens trade to Kansas City is not happening unless Kansas City creates the cap room and gets serious about it in the next 72 hours. And even if it happens, it forces Dallas into an offensive priority on a roster screaming for defensive investment. The smartest path may simply be to keep Pickens, let the July 15th extension deadline play out, and attack this draft board with both first-round selections aimed squarely at defensive impact. Now to the name that has generated more legitimate buzz over the past week than perhaps any other in the entire pre-draft conversation: Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. And based on what has been reported by multiple credible voices in NFL media, this is not smoke. This is coordinated, sourced interest from the Cowboys organization. Over 20 NFL teams sent personnel to Tyson's private workout at Arizona State last Friday, including the Cowboys, who were confirmed in attendance alongside the Giants, Eagles, Commanders, Browns, Titans, Packers, Chargers, Bills, Panthers, Cardinals, Dolphins, Lions, and Raiders. When more than 20 organizations send scouts and front office personnel to a single prospect's workout less than a week before the draft, that player is serious business. Adam Schefter addressed Dallas's interest directly, noting that he believes there is genuine organizational affection for Tyson beyond standard due diligence. Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys echoed that sentiment on social media, stating that the buzz around Tyson falling to Dallas at 12 was substantial and credible. Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram included Tyson in his list of 10 players in Dallas's pool at picks 12 and 20. Clarence Hill mentioned it on the Dallas Cowboys podcast. When this many reporters with legitimate Cowboys sourcing are pointing in the same direction simultaneously, the signal is clear. Now here's the full scouting picture on who Tyson actually is, because the talent is real and the injury concerns are real, and both deserve an honest examination. Tyson is listed at 6 feet 2 and 200 pounds, a twitchy and dynamic playmaker whose route-running traits and ability to get open in tight coverage have drawn consistent praise from league evaluators heading into this draft. In 2024, playing a full season with Arizona State, he caught 75 passes for 1,101 yards and 10 touchdowns. In 2025, despite being limited to 9 games, he posted 61 catches for 711 yards and 8 scores, maintaining elite efficiency even while playing through pain. Mel Kiper Jr. at ESPN ranked Tyson as the number 1 wide receiver in the 2026 draft class and the 7th overall prospect, writing that Tyson's superpower is his ability to create separation even when appearances suggest he is fully covered, and that his contested catchability and red zone dominance make him essentially unmatchable in scoring situations. Daniel Jeremiah at NFL Network was more conservative, placing Tyson 21st overall, and that range of opinion, from top 10 to mid-first, explains why the Cowboys' positioning at both 12 and 20 gives them genuine flexibility in how they pursue him. The injury history is the honest complication that no one should dismiss. Tyson suffered a torn ACL, MCL, and PCL in 2022. He broke his collarbone in 2024. He dealt with 2 hamstring injuries in 2025 that carried into the 2026 pre-draft process, keeping him off the field at the Combine and largely sidelined at Arizona State's Pro Day before his private workout last week. Jerry Jones has been explicit throughout this offseason that the Cowboys do not want redshirt years from young players. They need contributors who can produce immediately in 2026. Tyson's medical file directly conflicts with that philosophy, and the organization has to weigh that tension honestly before investing a top 12 selection in him. The most intellectually honest scenario where Tyson makes sense for Dallas is a specific one. The top 6 or 7 defensive prospects have all been taken before Dallas picks at 12. No viable trade-up package materializes to secure a specific target, and Tyson is sitting there as the best player available on the board. In that moment, taking the highest-graded player regardless of position becomes defensible. But Tyson is the contingency plan, not the primary strategy. The primary strategy has to be defense. There are only about 6 defensive prospects in this class that most evaluators consider sure-bet first-round quality impact players. Arvell Reese, David Bailey, and Reuben Bain at the pass rush positions, Sonny Styles at linebacker, Caleb Downs at safety, and Mansour Delane at corner. Dallas's odds of landing one of those players at 12 are solid. Their odds at 20 are less certain. That is the core, calculus driving every conversation around this draft for this organization. Moving to the pre-draft trade that has received serious advocacy from national media and represents perhaps the most executable move on this list. Acquiring veteran slot cornerback Kenny Moore II from the Indianapolis Colts. The proposal is straightforward, a 2026 fifth-round pick in exchange for a proven nickel defender who has already requested a trade out of Indianapolis. Dallas currently holds 3 fifth-round selections, giving them the flexibility to pull the trigger without gutting any meaningful portion of their draft class. Moore has spent 9 seasons with the Colts, accumulating 21 interceptions, 649 total tackles, 11.5 sacks, and 68 passes defended, numbers that represent one of the most durable and productive nickel cornerback careers in recent league history. His best individual season came in 2021 when he earned a Pro Bowl selection, posting 102 combined tackles, 13 passes defensed, and 4 interceptions. In 2025, working through an Achilles issue that limited him to 14 games, he still contributed 55 combined tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 6 passes defensed, and 1 interception. The Cowboys' defensive secondary context makes this argument straightforward. Dallas allowed the most passing yards in the NFL in 2025, finished 31st in passing touchdowns yielded, 30th in yards allowed, and 29th in interceptions. The nickel cornerback position is one that Dallas has not adequately addressed through free agency or existing roster construction, and the draft is unlikely to produce a day one ready slot defender at a realistic selection point for this team. Moore represents a plug-and-play solution that costs virtually nothing in terms of draft capital the Cowboys genuinely need for bigger roster decisions. There's a legitimate wrinkle worth examining. However, Moore is entering the final year of his contract, carrying $10 million in base salary and per-game bonuses with no guaranteed money remaining. A trading team would have to absorb that salary, which complicates the market somewhat. Additionally, the Colts general manager has indicated that if no trade partner surfaces, releasing Moore after June 1st is a likely outcome, a move that would allow Dallas to potentially sign Moore as a free agent without surrendering any draft capital at all. The patient play is to wait on Moore, hope no team acts before June 1st, and acquire him as a free agent without spending a pick. The aggressive play is to move a fifth-rounder now, secure the deal before the draft board creates competing priorities elsewhere, and enter next week's proceedings knowing the nickel position is handled. Given that Dallas has 3 fifth-round picks and a defense with no margin for error in 2026, the aggressive play carries minimal risk relative to the reward. A fifth-round pick for an experienced, scheme-versatile, proven slot defender on the final year of a contract is not an overpayment. It is efficient, targeted roster construction. In Christian Parker's defense, which was built on aggressive, multiple front pressure schemes during his time with the Eagles, a cornerback who can blitz and play interchangeably in zone and man coverage is exactly the type of Swiss Army knife the system rewards. Moore has shown throughout his career that he is that player. Over 9 seasons, he has not just covered slot receivers. He has disrupted quarterbacks, created turnovers, and tackled in the open field at a rate that most nickel corners cannot match. For a defense that needs to get substantially harder to move the ball against in 2026, Moore is the kind of piece that makes an entire secondary more functional. The final major storyline heading into this draft involves one of the more nuanced roster-building opportunities available to Dallas, and one that requires trading with a direct NFC East rival, which the Cowboys have historically avoided. Bleacher Report called Dallas the top landing spot for New York Giants edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeaux, the former 5th overall pick in the 2022 draft, arguing that the Cowboys make sense as a destination even accounting for the divisional trade barrier. Dallas's picks at 92 and 112 overall have been specifically cited as the range of capital that could complete a Thibodeaux deal, with Thibodeaux entering the final year of his rookie contract. His 5th-year option worth $14.75 million, giving the Giants limited leverage in any negotiation. A player heading into free agency after the season is essentially a rental, and rentals do not command premium compensation. The market for Thibodeaux appears to be somewhere between a third-round pick and a fourth-round selection, based on reporting from multiple league executives speaking to NFL insiders ahead of the draft. Several of those executives specifically suggested that a third-round pick might be enough to get the deal done if the Giants decide to move on. Thibodeaux had 11.5 sacks in 2023, a genuine breakout campaign, but has managed only 8 sacks across 22 games over the past 2 seasons, a stretch impacted by both injury and a changing role in New York's defensive structure following the addition of Brian Burns and the drafting of Abdul Carter III overall in 2025. That context matters because it explains both why the Giants are entertaining trade conversations and why Thibodeaux's value has declined from where it stood 3 years ago. Recent reporting indicates that the Giants have become less inclined to move Thibodeaux following their trade of Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals for the 10th overall pick. New York now holds 2 top 10 picks and no third-round selection, and new head coach John Harbaugh has expressed genuine enthusiasm about coaching Thibodeaux in a revamped defensive scheme alongside Burns and Carter. The organizational calculus has shifted, and a pre-draft deal is now considered unlikely by those tracking the situation. But here is why the Cowboys should remain attentive to this situation even as the odds have dimmed. Trades that seem impossible on Tuesday have a way of happening by Saturday night, when teams start watching players fall off the board and reassess their plans in real time. Christian Parker is a 34-year-old defensive coordinator who has demonstrated he can identify and develop pass-rushing talent. Thibodeaux, at 25 years old with a contract year ahead of him and a massive free agent payday waiting on the other side, represents a player with maximum motivation to perform. Spotrac projects his open market value at a 4-year deal in the range of $74.6 million in the 2027 cycle, a number that rises significantly if he produces double-digit sacks in 2026. Playing opposite Rashawn Gary in a scheme built to create pressure from multiple angles, the conditions for a career-best season exist. The blueprint for exactly this kind of move already exists in recent NFL history. The Eagles traded a third-round pick for Jalen Phillips at the trade deadline, and Phillips subsequently played his way into a 4-year, $120 million contract with the Carolina Panthers. Dallas could acquire Thibodeaux for a mid-round pick, watch him produce in a system designed to maximize his skill set, and either extend him or collect a compensatory selection if he walks in free agency. The risk profile relative to the upside is genuinely favorable if the price stays in the 3rd to 4th round range. The realistic path forward for this draft weekend breaks down into decisions with cascading consequences. The Pickens trade to Kansas City remains contingent on Kansas City creating the financial room and expressing actual interest, neither of which has materialized publicly. The more likely outcome is that Pickens stays in Dallas. The Cowboys negotiate through July, and the draft board is approached with both first-round picks aimed at defensive needs. At pick 12, the priority is clear. If any of the top-tier defensive prospects, Ruben Bain, Mansour Delane, Sonny Styles, or another impact defender, remain available, Dallas should be selecting that player without hesitation. The argument for taking Jordan Tyson at 12 over a legitimate defensive prospect requires accepting that this offense needs upgrading more urgently than this defense does, and that argument collapses under the weight of 511 points allowed. Tyson remains a legitimate target if the board clears out the top defensive options before Dallas picks, but not as a preference over a quality defender who can help stop the bleeding on a unit that was historically bad last season. At pick 20, the conversation opens up considerably. If Tyson is still on the board, the calculus becomes more interesting and the positional logic becomes harder to dismiss given that Dallas would presumably have already taken a defender at 12. If a trade-down opportunity materializes that adds volume to Dallas's pick total while still landing a quality prospect, that path deserves consideration. And if the Thibodeaux situation evolves during draft weekend, as these things sometimes do when picks get turned over and team needs shift in real time, Dallas should be positioned to act quickly with mid-round capital. The Kenny Moore decision should arguably be made before Thursday night. Spending a fifth-round pick to secure a proven veteran slot corner who has already requested a trade out of Indianapolis is a low-risk, high-clarity move. The Cowboys have the cap space to absorb his contract, the picks to spare in the fifth round, and the urgent need at the nickel position that no draft selection this weekend is likely to solve as immediately. Every day this goes unaddressed is a day another team can jump ahead of Dallas in the conversation. 4 days separate this organization from the most consequential weekend it has faced in the post-Parsons era. The capital is there. The targets are identified. The defensive need is overwhelming and undeniable. What happens between Thursday evening and Saturday night in Pittsburgh will determine whether the Cowboys come out of this draft weekend in a meaningfully better position than they entered it, or whether they leave with questions that follow them all the way to training camp. Jerry Jones has been given the resources and the circumstances to make this right. The draft board is set. The decisions are in front of him. Cowboys Nation, drop your take in the comments on what you want to see happen. And how about them Cowboys?